So when I was 4, living in Chicago, I met this friend of my dad who I called Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim had this extremely adorable half Border Collie, half Australian Shepherd named Sam. And if you look far enough on this channel's community section, you can see a picture of Sam. Sam was just so good with kids because he's got Australian Shepherd in him, right? Border Collies aren't as good with kids because Border Collies are just too smart. A Border Collie is probably smarter than a 4-year-old, so it can't stand a kid. But like an Australian Shepherd is the perfect balance between smart and just being a gentle dog, as long as it's raised well. Sam was so cute, and I called Sam Samu because my dad, with his Chinese accent, he introduced Sam as Samu because he says Samu, right? It's, a lot of times when you're foreign, you learn English, you'll add vowels or consonants or something that don't exist because you're trying to apply your own language paradigm into a new language. So my dad introduced Sam as Samu. So for me as a 4-year-old, I was like, oh, like Samu, because I'm learning English. English and Chinese are both my native languages. So I'm trying to reconcile. So I'm like, well, there's no word like Samu, but like maybe Samu, like, Sam and then moo, like a cow. So for the longest time, I would call Sam Samu. Uncle Jim he thought it was funny, so he would start calling Sam Samu just to be funny. So because I was always introduced to Sam as Samu, and Uncle Jim always just called him Samu just to be funny, I actually thought his name was Samu. So, anyways, why am I telling this? One, it's a funny memory. And two, I asked Uncle Jim to send me some pictures of Sam, but he hasn't. So I'm going to send this to Uncle Jim. Be like, yo, Uncle Jim, send me some pictures of Sam, please. Shout out Uncle Jim. He's gone up there in life, man. So go, Uncle Jim. But first time, or maybe the second time, I don't remember. It's been too many years. So either the first time or the second time I met Sam, Uncle Jim, my dad, and I took Sam out to play, aka walk him. I hadn't grown up with dogs, right? 90s in China, dogs, if you were really rich, maybe you had a dog as a pet, and then if you needed a dog for hunting, for something else, a dog was a work dog or a dog was a meal, right? It was one of those three. It wasn't like in America now where like basically all dogs are your children. It wasn't like that. So it was kind of weird to see everyone have dogs in America. We're walking Sam. If you guys have ever been a dog owner, now we don't really have those leashes that can kind of stretch out. You can let the dog wander really far, and then you can press a button and it'll stop the leash from being able to extend. And then you can also tell the dog to come back. If you guys know what I'm talking about, most people nowadays have body harnesses on their dogs, or for bigger dogs, people have what are called like a prong collar because it helps keep them in line. Body harnesses because it's better for the dog, because if you have a leash on the neck, it's choking them, right? Anyways, as you can tell, I love dogs, and I loved walking dogs for fun. So these are just random things I think about. And in LA, you meet a lot of bad dog owners, like a lot of owners who shouldn't have dogs. Not going to go into that aside. That can be a talk for another time. You had a button to stop the leash from extending. You had another button to lock it, and then you had a third button to tell the leash to come back. So I remember, because I had not grown up with dogs, this was a cute little thing that kept licking me, right? I didn't understand it. So my Uncle Jim pressed the button to stop the leash, to make the leash tight so Sam wouldn't keep walking. And I remember at that very moment, Sam peed. And because I had never grown up with a dog, I didn't know what a dog was. This was my first or second time hanging out with Sam, or hanging out with a dog in general. I thought that because Uncle Jim pressed that button, it made Sam pee. I was like, whoa, because I had toys growing up. I'm like, so this dog's kind of like a toy, like you press this button and it pees. It seemed natural to me. The button, and then the dog peed. Eventually, I asked Uncle Jim if I can see the leash, and I tried the button again, and I figured out what the button did, right? It like stopped the leash from extending. So like if you wanted to keep the dog from running away or whatever, you press it, and the dog gets held back. And I was like, whoa, so Sam doesn't pee every time I press the button. Obviously, for those of you who understand that I like to think, or what we talk about on this channel, you know exactly what this is, right? Correlation is not causation. Just because something occurred next to each other, occurred one after another, doesn't mean one caused another. Now, 4-year-old me couldn't phrase it that way, but I understood it at that very moment. I knew, okay, not everything that happens next to each other means one thing causes another. It took me meeting the first cute dog I ever kind of played with, and then seeing this little interaction involving a leash. Why is it that after this moment, the next time I stumbled on this correlation isn't causation was probably 8th grade, when we had a little bit of a unit on statistics in geometry class. If you took certain curricula in America, you could take these classes that had what's called analysis. Those were the classes that taught you a little bit of statistics in addition to the regular class you were taking. And then for those of you who then took statistics in high school or college, or you took, let's say, science classes in high school or college, then you would really get that pounded through your skull. Correlation does not mean causation. But you see this little gap here, right? There's a gap between when I was 4 and when I was in high school. Whereas all these years where, thank goodness I had that memory, because, Sam was such a cute dog. I had such good interactions with Sam. And yeah, I miss Sam. I didn't want to admit it. So when I went back to China and then I came back to America, Sam passed away. So it's like I had 3.5 amazing years with Sam, and then Sam passed away. I always had that memory of Sam that first year, that first time that I met Sam, and I somehow through that interaction picked up the concept without knowing how to phrase it. Correlation does not mean causation. So how can we as a society teach people what I learned at age 4 around the same age? Like, it's important to build up those fundamental skills of critical thinking as early as you can. How many times have you heard this expression, correlation does not mean causation? How many people know how to apply it in life? Like, nobody, right? Maybe I'm over-exaggerating, but there's a sizable group of people who don't understand that just because something occurs next to each other, just because you put something and something else on a graph and it seems to show one thing influences another, that means it actually causes. Maybe I have the solution, which is you need a personal event, you need a personal. The computer ran out of memory as I was recording. I was just getting into it, so I kind of disturbed the flow. So I probably will stop it here, because if I try to record again, it's not going to flow like what I had before. So I'll just end it here. Maybe by telling that story about Sam, I stumbled on the solution to this, which is you really have to apply it to yourself as early as possible. So if you didn't apply it that moment, try to apply it retroactively as early on into your childhood or whenever you had memory as possible. I hope educators really think about this, because why aren't we learning about how to critically think correctly in first grade? And I'm serious. How can we get more critical thinking skills taught as early as possible? How can people like me have a moment when they're 4 and then later on apply it even better? How do we do it? How do we get people, maybe they didn't even realize they had an epiphany. They can remember it later as they learn the concept, right? How do you apply it to your earliest memories? I don't know. What do you guys think?